Just one little thing, it doesn't take it, you know?
You know, he was saying for the last couple of years before he passed away, he said he's ready to go, he's tired of living. You know, my mom died 20 years before he, you know, well, everybody he knew was dead. He only had a couple sisters and they was too old.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, you know what? I think something just.
He was an usher at church, and all the ushers, he was the last standing usher.
Was he?
Yeah, and it was just pretty sad.
Which church was that?
St. Barnabas.
St. Barnabas.
Now it's Holy Innocent St. Barnabas.
They're not gonna have no more fish fries, are
They got a kitchen over there, I'm hoping,
they? Where?
at Holy Innocent.
Why didn't
Now it's
they-
Holy Innocent St. Barnabas.
Hello.
It was Holy
How about you?
Innocent St. Barnabas before they moved.
Yeah.
Cite it as well.
But yeah, Holy St. Barnabas, and now it's Holy, Holy Innocent. On Fraser?
No.
Fraser.
Yeah, I didn't know they had a kitchen.
Oh, yeah,
Somebody
in the
said they
school.
didn't have hot.
In the school.
Yeah, where they gonna have the fish dinners? They can't have it in school.
Switch my name. Because I didn't see it.
They've got a, yeah, they're supposed to be fixing it up because they got a,
Next time I'm up here.
quite a bit of money from St. Barnabas. They got the money to fix it up. They should.
Next time I'm in.
But who knows? We could be closed.
You were talking to Harvey.
They're eager to close them.
Yeah, they closed them left and right in Detroit. With that archbishop they had, John Deere.
I thought it was.
They said they ran him out of Pennsylvania. Come over here, I don't know. You remember Deere?
Yeah.
Yeah, they ran him out of this district in Pennsylvania. He's too progressive or radical. They had no use for him. They brought him over here. Hey, Detroit was the right place for him, you know. And it's all.
Right.
And he was the one that, because I remember I went to St. Stanislaus over there by 94 and 75. And my dad and I used to go to meetings. And when senior got up, he told the people, don't worry about them closing us down. We got enough money in the bank to keep the church and the school. No, they did. That guy went to the bank on Monday after Sunday. He had 2 satchels full of money. He said they had enough money to keep the school and church going for 10 years if nobody gave a penny. They closed it 2 years after. That's a racket.
I got all my neighbors, they got the bells too. Never sit. Such a good band.
Okay. I'd like to loudly call to order the Planning Commission meeting for July 6th, 2023. Secretary, please call the roll at 7:04.
Mr. Broll,
Present.
Ms. Naylor, Mr. Lalonde.
Here.
Ms. Julinski here, Mr. Lubeck,
Here.
Ms. Moody,
Here.
Chairman DeHaan.
Here. I'd like to move on to the approval of the agenda. May I get a motion? Mr.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda.
I'll support that motion.
Oh, hold on. With a hard stop?
There's a larger number of people here, so I assume many of them want to talk. So I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting at 9:30, no matter where we are on the agenda.
I'll still support that motion.
Secretary, please call the roll and please reflect Ms. Naylor's attendance. No,
Mr. Lalonde,
Yes.
Mr. Lubeck,
Yes.
Mr. Broll,
yes.
Ms. Moody,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor. Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman DeHaan.
Yes. Then we move on to the first hearing of the public. Forgive me, Rich, do we need to ask for a motion on that? Okay. So I will open the first hearing of the public. We will close the first hearing of the public. And we will move on to the approval of the minutes for the June 1st meeting.
Chair, I move to approve the minutes of the June 1st meeting as written.
We have motion, do we have support?
Support.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor? Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Mr. Lubak?
Yes.
Chairman DeHaan?
Yes. Before we go to the resumption of the public hearing that started last month, I have a couple of comments that are in deference to things that were seen on social media. That the Planning Commission has approved this, that the city has approved this, that it's some sort of insidious cabal, that some of the spin on social media has been absolutely aberrant. So I'm here to say, we all got our packets on Friday, we've all done our due diligence, and we're here to do the work. There are no preconceived plots. So I just want to get that out of the way and debunk social media on this item. Having said that, I'm going to defer to Ms. Brzezowski to reintroduce the topic so the public has an idea of what's going on and what's being proposed. Ms. Brzezowski.
Chair, do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
It's
If
already
you want a
open.
motion to remove that public hearing from the table and reconvene at this time, I make that motion.
Okay. Well, I'd still like for you to introduce,
4611 Gratiot. So we received an inquiry to reoccupy the 24611 Gratiot space, the former East Point Manor location, to open up an event hall or a banquet hall or a catering hall. They're all synonymous. The applicant seeks to reoccupy the former East Point Manor space and use it, as we said, a catering hall, event hall, or banquet hall. If they do pursue a catering hall designation, then they will require to have a liquor license if they serve alcohol. And also if they serve food, then they will require to have a public health permit from the county. Let's see. The proposed project is located within the B3 General Business District. And catering halls are not defined within the zoning ordinance, but assembly halls are defined in the zoning ordinance. And assembly halls require a special land use. So this is why the applicant is here today, to pursue a special land use request. And with the special land use, we have a public hearing. That's Michigan state law. The Planning Commission considers the special land use request, but it's up to the City Council to grant the final approval or denial, or just make the final decision. And even though the subject property has been in operation as an event hall for a little over 40 years, it never received a special land use permit. And once there was a change in ownership and a request to open a new business, this prompted the Planning Department to initiate the whole special land use process. This is why we're meeting here today. The use is not a non-conforming use. If it was a non-conforming use, it would not be permitted in the B3 district. But since it's permitted as a special land use, that's why the applicant is here today, to seek a special land use request. Thank you, Chair.
thank you. So at this point, we have the resumption of the public hearing. If you wish to be heard on this topic, again, please write your name on the piece of paper that's up there, and you have 3 minutes. The podium is yours.
Mr. Chair, we have 2 emails that were received. May
Please.
I read those first?
Yes, please.
Here's one that was sent. Good afternoon. I am unable to make the Planning Commission meeting on Thursday, July 6th, but would like my comments to be read into the record at hearing of the public. Good evening. I am writing to emphatically voice my support against approval of special land use for the building at 24611 Gratiot. The applicant's current business, Ray's Boom Boom Room, has had a significant number of complaints from the community since its existence. According to the information in the packet, in 2022 alone, East Point Police performed 60 visits to the business, including one in May of 2022 on July 6, 2023, and would like my comments read into the record. I strongly oppose the special land use request proposed by Leon Glover / Ray's Boom Boom Room. I live nearby his current business, and when they have events, patrons park down Gratiot and onto Veronica. I don't feel it's a business that respects our neighborhood and family town. When you consider the 60 police visits in 2022, please ask for the breakdown of how many visits per night. Ray's Boom Boom Room is not open daily or even every weekend night. So if you do the math and they are open every Saturday, which they are not, then 60 visits and 52 openings is excessive, unfair to our, then 60 visits and 52 openings is excessive, unfair to our neighborhood, and a strain on our already overworked police staff. Please deny their request. That is from Cindy Federle. A second email from Cindy Federle. After discussing this with my husband, we've thought of another concern about Ray's Boom Boom Room. They set up a tent in their parking lot, which reduces their parking space and requires more parking in our neighborhood. This also leads us to believe they are over capacity inside the building. This completely disregards the intent of the city ordinances and safety. Hopefully you can add this to my comments. Thanks, Cindy Federle. That's it, Chair.
Thank you. If anybody in the public wishes to be heard, please, you have your time to speak. If you can please state your name, please.
Susan O'Lear.
Thank you.
I live at 16280 Bell, right across the street. I do not want this at all because, like you said, for 40 years this has been a hall. And for 40 years I have listened to fights on the street. I have had people park up and down the street across my driveway. Call the police about the parking. Police never showed up. Are you guys, whoever's going to approve this, or the business themselves, going to come out and clean up the puke on the sidewalk that has been there for, they do it all the time. They had an event, just Saturday night, I think it was? Saturday night? Parking everywhere, up and down the street, in the parking lot next to me, in the private parking lot behind us. They're everywhere. And I feel we've been in that house since 1962. We're longtime East Pointers. And this just is not right for a family community. You need to deny their request.
For your time, does anybody else wish to be heard?
My name's Pentowski, and I just got this form on my door a couple of days ago, so I'm not familiar with the whole setup. But according to this form, it says this establishment had multiple instances of violence and police calls. Well, if that's what this establishment brings, I don't even know why you're ever considering giving this place a business to okay to open. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to be heard?
Good afternoon. My name is Kenneth Oderman. I live on Bell Street. And I'm not aware of any of what the previous speakers have spoke. I feel that the gentleman should be given a chance, regardless to what has happened someplace else. Now, one lady said that the police wouldn't call. Now, what's going on there? Do this person that wants this establishment, why was the establishment sold to this person in the first place? If he couldn't, if he wasn't going to be given a chance to run the place in an organized manner. I just feel that we're jumping the gun here. I feel that he should be given a chance to set up this establishment and provide jobs for people, because that's what will happen. Okay, I've been over there 5 years, and I don't know what these people are talking about. I'm not familiar with any of this violence that they're speaking of. So, you know, I'm just speaking my mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shirley Peak. I have lived on Bell Avenue since 1949. I saw Carpenter's Hall being built. I saw East Point Manor when Benny and Dominic Bomarito took it over. What a wonderful job they did on the inside renovating it. The hall has been a good history and enjoyed by a lot of residents in this city for many, many years. Many good times there. We don't need problems after all these years. This deal that went on Saturday night, was it legal to have that at this point? All the cars, all the people? And my question is, was there alcohol being served or used in any way? Was any of this legal Saturday night? Bell is a very nice, quiet street. We don't have any problems, and we certainly don't need them now coming down from the Boom Boom place. I hope you reconsider this and give it a lot of thought. Plus, regardless of that hall, that parking lot is atrocious. I'm surprised the city hasn't said to do something with it. And they were parking all over in there, all over the streets. And we don't need parking down our complete street from Bell to Flock, from Gratiot to Flocks. Sometimes we have a hard enough time getting in our driveways as it is. So I hope you really consider this. It's not a good idea at all. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to be heard? Anyone else wish to be heard?
Hi, I'm Pat Aguano, and I live on Bell Street. I lost my husband last year, and I live by myself, and I'm worried about this being problems around our neighborhood. It is a quiet street, but I'm worried about everybody around that area. It's a family town, and I just don't think that if it was just a nice place where you could go and have dinner or something nice, that would be okay, but we get parking. I live close to Flocks, and we get parking down there from the hall. So I sure don't want that kind of thing going on in my neighborhood, or I might have to put a for sale sign up. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tisha Landrum, and I am an East Point resident, and I live not far from the Boom Boom Room. However, I learned of this whole situation on Facebook, so I decided to show up today to see what all the hoopla was about. I can understand their concerns as far as living, and maybe the parking situation, but what bothers me just sitting here listening to everybody is the negativity. No one is looking at the positive aspect of reopening a business to get monies to come back into East Point. Instead of worrying about what's bad could happen, let's worry about the good that can come from this. Don't focus on what you've seen and make that be what is always going to be. There are other establishments that are here that have negative impacts, but we don't want to focus on that. We want to move forward. This is a community, so if someone wants to use a business, to not leave it empty, for us to have something to grow East Point, let's look at it from that point of view and not just how something good is not going to come from it. Thank you.
Commissioners, Gary Myron from East Point. kind of trouble it would bring, but the Boom Boom Room does create problems. Total experience banquet, what does that really mean on experiences? They're going to have dinners, looks like they're going to have dinner nightclub music, have entertaining. Is that going to create alcohol and everything? I don't know what kind of things are spelled out. But I'm kind of against it. You know, the traffic out on Gratiot. I just agree with a lot of the other people, agree with them. That's it, just not in favor.
Does anybody else wish to be heard? Anyone else wish to be heard? Okay. If you would please write your name on the piece of paper there.
Yes, good evening. I'm a resident of East Point for 7 years. I attended the event, but I'm kind of confused. Are you talking about the Boom Boom Room or the hall?
This is speaking specifically the old East Point Manor, which is the address,
Okay.
4611 Gratiot.
Okay, so I attended that event. It was beautiful. I don't recall the police being called there at all. I don't recall seeing, pardon me? Sunday. What? But what day was the police?
Well, why don't
But
you
the police
address us?
wasn't called. It was beautiful. Everybody was getting along. I don't understand what the complaints are about, but I'm in favor for it. It would bring jobs. And that's it.
Thank you.
Tom Clowender, I'm a 32-year resident of East Point. I got caught up in the traffic jam that occurred outside of the former East Point Manor last Saturday, July 1st, about 7:15, 7:30. The traffic in the right lane was backed up almost a block. So, of course, everybody was turning into the center lane to try and get through there, which I got caught up in. Couldn't figure out what it was until I got near the hall and saw all the cars turning onto Bell Avenue. When I looked down Bell, there was traffic all the way down Bell as far as the eye could see. These residents don't need this. We do not need this. I live in close proximity of the current Ray's establishment. We don't need that kind of activity in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
If you would please write your name on the, Mr. Clowender, just write your name on the thing.
Good evening, City Council members and East Point residents. My name is Candide Cargill. I was a resident of East Point. However, I just recently moved. I am very fond of East Point, and the reason why is because East Point is a mixed melting pot, if you will. There are a lot of businesses that are old. There are a lot of businesses that are new. However, all of these businesses cater to everyone. And that's what Total Experience is about. Total Experience, the meaning, the name itself, where it comes from, where it derives from, where it was built or made from. These are two individuals that were law enforcement. Okay, these are two individuals that also have a little bit to do with Ray's Boom Boom Room. That is true. However, there has been no citations for Ray's Boom Boom Room. I am a bartender there. I am also one of the best entertainment personnel that you ever get a chance to meet. If you have ever decided to take a step out of your normal activity and come and visit us, you will see it's not so much as the traffic, because we have a lot of traffic here in East Point when we have the Dream Cruise. I remember one year I wasn't even able to turn onto Stevens to get to my own home.
Miss, if you could direct your comments towards us.
Sure,
please.
absolutely.
Thank you.
So there are a lot of things that we do here at East Point, a lot of things that are offered at East Point. There are different other businesses and things like that. We have a slew of restaurants, a slew of child care development centers, and clothing stores. And all of these are owned by different minorities. We all have to come together. At some point, we have to let the old be old. And the new, we should be embracing a new plateau. And Total Experience is a hall, a banquet hall. It will not be a nightclub. It will not be used as a nightclub. It is a banquet hall. To do what? To cater to birthday parties, to residents when we have like some large event for children, for other events. So it's not just solely on one thing, on one purpose. It's a multi-purpose use. For what? For multi-purpose people. That's what Total Experience is about. And I'm all for it. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Good evening. Okay, good evening. My name is Amelia Ritter. One of the things that I would like to point out is this does not seem like an establishment. Every time you coming down that same road that they're on, it's police, it's traffic jams, it's everything. This does not feel like an establishment. It feels like a mess. That's what it feels like. So that's what I would just like to point out to y'all. It feels like a mess. It does not feel like an establishment at all. It feels like a mess. Thank you. Have a good one.
Does anybody else wish to be heard? Anyone else wish to be heard?
My name is Carol Arvo.
And I'm Richard Arvo. Basically, I've lived in East Point since approximately 1957, with the minor time I served in the Army. But we lived down the street from Roma Hall, and Roma Hall held events in the same mass. It's where the places are located when they run out of parking, and you just park on the streets. We used to have inconvenience when Roma Hall was there. When that went away, we lost that, but the people on Bell are still experiencing the same thing. With this addition of a same place with not enough parking, it's going to cause the same problems, in my opinion.
I've been a resident here for over 65 years. I went through the school system here, and like he said, we did have problems at Roma Hall, and occasionally when the East Point Manor had parties there, we still had the issues with parking every so often, depending on how big of a party it was over there. And I know their parking lot is not that big. I understand we do need businesses in East Point, but is this one that we want to choose? I'm not for it. I think there should be something else in there. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to be heard? Anybody else wish to be heard? Anybody else wish to be heard? Seeing none, we will close the hearing of the public. And we will move on to,
I make a motion at this time to close the public hearing on the Total Experience Banquet Hall project at 24611 Gratiot Avenue.
Do we need to read into the record the fact that this was the closing of the public hearing that started last month? Okay.
I second that motion.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Lubeck?
Yes.
Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman DeHunt?
Yes. Moving on to new business, item 6. Ms. Brazaszewski.
Thank you, Planning Commission, and thank you, members of the public, for voicing all of your comments about this project. It's good to have vocal input, so thank you for coming out tonight. Chair, I know that there's been information floating around. I know the Planning Commission has questions. I know the members of the public have questions that that I think that we can address, but I also want to recognize that Leon Glover, Total Experience Event Hall or Banquet Hall, is here today, along with Rose Dollar. Daryl? Dare, okay. Okay, well, along with Rose Dare, if we'd like to hear from them, give them opportunity to speak.
Yes. Please.
Thank you, Mara, and thank the public for all of your helpful, instructive comments. I wanted to address a few of those before we start addressing some concerns that the city administration had. The banquet hall is actually going to be an event hall now because there's no liquor license, so it cannot be deemed a banquet hall. And it's not open. There was a private party for a family friend. Mr. Glover found out about people parking on Bell Street and sent his security guard to find out whose car they were and ask them to move. The good news is, because parking is a concern, but there's going to be traffic when there's any event at any place, at a Tiger game, at, a wedding, there's going to be additional traffic. But the automotive business next door to Total Experience Event Hall has agreed to allow Mr. Glover and Total Experience to utilize their parking lot. He's signed a document here for any overflow. There's 79 spaces in that parking lot, which Mr. Glover is going to begin to work on, having completed a lot of work inside. The occupancy is 100. So you figure maybe there'll be 2 in a car or so. But the other thing Mr. Glover is looking into is renting a lot and having valet so that there'd be no parking on all of you lovely people's streets who've lived on those streets for many, many years, and I understand your concern. Certainly, there'll be no one blocking driveways. This business, Total Experience, is Mr. Glover's. Mr. Glover's is a reserve Wayne County Sheriff. He did help Ray run manage the Ray's Boom Boom Room. They're not the owner there. They never received any tickets or any liquor control tickets for any violations. They started managing in 2019 for the owner, Matt Miller, and then closed during all of COVID. They've opened back up and have a senior citizen night on Sunday nights with oldies music. They understand that there have been incidents in the parking lot. They've responded when the police have called and spoken to them and provided any security footage that they had to help out with those events. But this is not Ray's Boom Boom Room. I went to Ray's Boom Boom Room. It looks nothing like Total Experience, and it's down where it is, down Gratiot. And this is a separate project that Mr. Glover had for a love of catering and food that he is handling. By the way, Mr. Glover's son is a new East Point police officer, and he also, being a reserve Wayne County Sheriff, knows the importance of safety and The groups of people he's intending on having there are people who are having baby showers, wedding showers, 50th anniversary parties. But I think some of the solutions to the parking, such as being able to use the lot next door, that Abraham it's EID, stated in his letter, and looking into a valet so there will not be cars parked on the streets are good solutions. Mr. Glover is going to pass pictures of the renovations. Could you please take a look and pass them to your neighbor next door? I have having surgery on Tuesday for carpal tunnel and only could make 10 copies.
Hold on, folks. Why don't you give them to us?
Oh, but I asked permission from the council to pass those. I'm so sorry.
Well, Ms. Holman, what's your preference? Or Mr. Albright?
Mr. Chair, I instructed Ms. Dare to, if she was going to distribute pictures to the public, ask the permission of the chair.
I'm so sorry. I forgot. May I have permission to distribute the pictures?
Let's poll the commission. I don't want to make a decision. Is everybody okay with her passing out pictures?
I don't have a problem with it, but I would like to know what pictures are being passed around.
My understanding was there were copies of those made for the council, or they were not? Then
I cannot verify. I was given a packet by the attorney to copy for the planning commission
Mr. Breaux, how do you feel?
members.
these pictures were included in
I don't have a problem with
in the
pictures being
response
passed.
sent to Mara
Ms.
on
Ulinski?
June 28th. Can I approach with a packet of the pictures? These are the renovations that have been made. Mr. Glover has spent over
How do you all feel down here?
$30,000 renovating the inside of this.
Okay. We are fine with you doing this.
My parliamentary procedure is totally lacking, and I greatly apologize. It's
We all
been
have our moments.
a real long day. He spent quite a bit of time and money. The place that was there before was left in pretty much a mess, and he discovered 2 gas leaks, which could have started a fire, which have been corrected. And you'll see the renovations of the dining room, the floors, the bathrooms are meticulous, and so is the kitchen. And if he's planning on food preparation, he will get a public health license for that. But right now, there's no alcohol. This environment could not be any more different than the Boom Boom Room. I would not compare the two. I don't believe anything that goes on there is relevant to what's going to happen at the event hall, a Total Experience. The building outside will, the dumpster area and parking lot will be worked on. I spoke with the, what's the, your agriculture guy, your horticulturist? His landscaper, actually on 4th of July, they're going to be planting trees pursuant to the site plan. That was wonderfully done, and I'm going to introduce the architect in a minute because he's corrected that. But the services provided will be banquet-style lunches and dinners, and everyone is invited to have a tasting there for free a week from Saturday between 3 to 5 and a tour of the banquet hall. So you can get an idea of what's there. You may want to use that for someone's first Holy Communion celebration or an anniversary party. But this is not a bar, it is an event hall. Mr. Glover will make sure there are no ordinance violations, but will provide an annual report to the planning department if there are violations and their details if so. And Mr. Glover informs me that he will have adequate security watching both the outside and the inside of the building, mostly to handle parking and, to help people around, but to make sure that no one enters the building with any type of weapons or anything that can cause a problem. He also has a magnetometer, by the way. He's removed all the debris in the building, and he wants to create a tax base for the city of East Point by having people employed who will pay taxes to the city and creating more jobs. He mistakenly applied for this event hall in Boom Boom Rooms name initially because he wanted to get the ball rolling, and his daughter does his administrative work, and he wasn't sure if Total Experience had been filed with the Michigan Department of Corporations, but it has since been filed. His application has been amended, and I think that's what caused people to think that there was a similarity between the two businesses. They're not. And that's one of the reasons that Mr. Glover left. He's more interested in providing these events and banquets for people and serving food than being in a bar. He told me the other day he's getting old. He wants to have a quieter a time with his business. If I may, I have the revised site plan, and I want to introduce Michael Gordon, who's the architect, and he has revised this site plan to an event hall rather than a catering hall, which was incorrectly submitted initially, and he has photometrics on this copy, and those copies were apparently sent to myself and Mara this afternoon. We didn't have time to review them, but they may be provided to the council at any time. So he is, did you want to speak and tell them what you're doing?
Just a correction, we're just commissioners, we're not council people. We leave that to Cardi.
Okay, may Mr. Gordon speak?
Please.
Okay.
Good evening. We were contracted to help with this project. Architecturally, it's very minimal, but there was a dozen items or so that were brought to our attention, including fixing up the parking lot, landscaping, screening walls, and then the photometric lighting plan to make sure that the light doesn't bleed into the neighboring properties. Some of these pose some challenges because it's not a new build. Photometrics are easy when you have new fixtures. We had to go out, we had to find out what the fixtures were, and it's taken some time. As of today, we've addressed all of her concerns. They're on the drawings. We've made notes about restriping and came up with different things that had to do with the landscaping, including irrigation, including adding new trees. So everything that has been asked for has been done, and they're willing to do that. And again, architecturally, we didn't really have to change anything. The interiors are in fine shape, as you saw, and the outside of the building is sound. The dumpster enclosure will be upgraded so it matches the building, and I think we've listened and worked real well with your consultant, and we're happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
I also want to introduce Leon Glover to everybody we've spoken for many hours at length about
how you doing?
The neighborhood and how he wants to ensure the safety of the neighborhood, and will make an extra effort. He already has started to make sure there's not parking on the streets of the neighboring homes. Is that right, Mr. Glover?
Absolutely.
Okay. Did the commissioners have any questions regarding the use or any of the concerns that were raised in the packet?
I'm sure we have questions. Who wishes to start it off?
I'm sorry, I just have one simple one. The hours stipulated show 3 to 12 and 4 to 12, and then you said there's going to be banquet-style lunches and dinners. What are the hours?
I mean, typically it's going to be 5 p.m. to 11, but there may be luncheons depending on, the place before would host the State of the City and the Championship Awards, which Mr. Glover is happy to do. Those events might take place during the day, but typically the hours would be, for like a dinner events. Is that correct? But it is available for luncheon events as well.
What do you consider adequate security?
Well, there should be at least a security guard in the parking lot. I represent a number of different restaurants and bars in Oakland and Wayne County, and they may be in perfectly safe neighborhoods, but having a security guard ensures that people get to their cars safely. If anyone has a problem, loses their keys or needs help with their vehicle, there will be someone there. If the occupancy is 100 people, so Mr. Glover thought that at least 2 security guards, 1 outside and 1 inside, perhaps 2 outside, if it's the full 100 people who are present for an event. Not so much worrying about inside, although he probably will have someone on the inside. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I was in the last meeting when we got the packet, when we tabled it, and I saw the request for 6 security guards. My eyes just kind of rolled in the back of my head. I've never been to an event where I have seen security guards. And automatically, it starts putting negative connotations in your mind. Why would you want to have that many security people? I guess maybe they're there and I just don't see them if I go to a function, but it just was a shocking number.
There was a response to that, and I don't know who was on the CC list to the response I sent. There were like 7 or 8 people, so I apologize if you didn't receive that. But my client thought the occupancy was 470 persons because there was a sign in the restaurant left there by the prior owner, which I included in the packet, and I do have a copy of that says occupancy not to exceed 470 people. So he thought that this was a larger event space. It was explained to him that that's not the fire marshal occupancy, and that he was therefore decided to keep his events with close to 100 persons or less, so obviously would not need that many security guards. And again, having a law enforcement background, he simply wanted, he was talking off the top of his head. It wasn't a definite thought. He had seen the sign for 470, thought there would be large gatherings there, and if there were 470 people there, 3 or 4 security guards or even more might not hurt. But it's not that occupancy. He knows now what the requirements are. If he has over 100, he'd have to have a fire suppression system installed, and the landlord's not willing to do that at this time. And so he's content with 100 people and less security. So that was the reason, because of that sign. I'm not sure if that was sent with the pictures and response that I initially sent on June 28th to the Planning and Zoning Commission, Mr. Albright, of course, Mr. Brazowski, I'm so sorry, and other people who were listed here. I'm happy to show you a copy of that sign if you'd like to see it.
We're aware of that. We've gotten the packet, but I believe the Fire Chief has a comment.
Chairman, if I may, this is the sign that was included. This is the sign you get from the fire department.
Exactly.
They do not look anything alike. I don't know where this one came from. So, and the occupancy is up to 100 personnel. That includes staff.
Got it.
So if he has 5 staff working, that means there's 95 people in that establishment only.
And when I saw, as soon as I saw that, I told him that is not a legitimate occupancy sign. It was left there from the prior owner. That's where he got it.
Mr. Lubeck?
Okay, I have a lot of questions and a lot of concerns. From what I've seen, we'll make it very simple. There's a lot of toothpaste out here, and now you've got to put it back in the tube. You're telling me you're not part of Ray's Boom Boom Room. You're telling me you've been involved in a current business, you want to obey the laws, and that you're a reserve law enforcement officer. Well, then I'm going to hold you to a real high standard. Number one, being involved in a business in the city, you should know what our rules are. We have rules on changeable copy signs. That sign in front of the location you're trying to get approval for has been operating illegally for months. There's animation on that sign that is not permitted. The brightness of that sign is far more intense than what it should be. And conveniently, it only happens during non-city business hours when code enforcement isn't working.
It'll be taken.
Which leads, I don't care what's going to be, I'm talking about what is. And what that is that's showing a total disrespect towards this city and our ordinances. And I have a real problem with that. You're telling me here you're going to comply with everything, yet you've complied with very little to nothing so far. Matter of fact, you've kind of rubbed our nose in it. Then, between last month and this month, you know what the concerns are, and you go and you have a big party there on Saturday. And you're going to talk to us in this response here how, oh yeah, we're going to follow the laws and we're going to police parking and you didn't. You absolutely did not. This was put together as some kind of a private club. 6 security guards. Then you tell us you're going to be operating it as a banquet hall. I've been to a lot of banquet halls. I've never seen any security guards. You passed out some pictures tonight. This was one of them. I've never been to a banquet hall that has coin-operated pool tables in it. I see there's a stack of large screen TVs. Again, I've not seen very often at a banquet hall.
People might have events.
Another thing I just noticed in this picture, the pool tables. You have pool table lighting installed in the building over those pool tables. Were permits pulled to put that lighting in? I mean, the problem that I've got right now is a credibility issue. So I'm going to give you an opportunity, put that toothpaste back in the tube.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
For a billiard room, if there are pool tables, city council approval must be obtained.
There's no lighting in those lights, no working lighting, but that issue regarding the pool tables, the TVs, I think, are there in case someone wants to have a sporting event, catered dinner of some sort to watch something that's, a basketball final or a baseball game or something like that. Were the pool tables there, or did you purchase them?
Chair,
Yes.
before we dive in again, I think Fire Chief had something to say.
Can I make one more comment, though? One of the messages on that sign, after you told us you've got nothing to do with Ray's Boom Boom Room, is big, bright letters, Ray O'Shea. Who is Ray O'Shea if he's not Ray from Ray's Boom Boom Room?
I'm not sure that sign is going to stay up. Yeah, because he was one of the people considered for entertainment, but he's going to have a more entertainment that caters to more big band, jazz, wedding reception.
Okay, wait, if this is a banquet hall, why is he going to try to be booking entertainment? That generally would be up to the people that are renting the hall.
Right. If it's a wedding or so forth,
You
people may
just
want to have
put a little
entertainment.
more toothpaste out there that you're going to need to put back in my
I'm sorry, I
opinion.
didn't understand your question, because people behind me are talking, it's hard for me to hear, but. if
You're
want-
telling me he's going to book entertainment there,
I didn't say
and
he was
it's
gonna
not
book it.
going
I
to
said
be
he was
Ray
going to allow a-
O'Shea. And I'm asking, why would he be booking entertainment events there if he's a banquet hall?
I never said he was booking them. I said the type of music that was going to be there would be different than the music that Mr. O'Shea would be doing. It would be up to the people who are having the event to decide what kind of music they were having. And the sign will be taken down. And I understand your concerns, and it's very valid. And I understand that Mr. Glover needs to educate himself as to every single ordinance that's applicable to his building, and not just work on the inside, and make sure that he gets city council approval and/or permits for anything additional. So the I don't know, I guess, is not the greatest answer, but that's pretty much what I'm hearing as far as some of the concerns that you raised. But I told him the sign had to come down when I saw it last week, and that's in the works as well.
So the fire marshal has a comment. Oh, fire chief, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, in my program that I use for inspections, I have Leon Glover listed as the manager of Ray's Boom Boom Room. That's who I had sent responses to when I did an inspection. the fact that they had an event and had to park down Bell, if you use the factor of 3 personnel per car, there's, along the east wall and west wall, that's 34 spots. That is plenty of parking, because the 3, that's gonna put you at 99 right there. And then actually 102. So they actually have more parking than they actually would need if they were only gonna have 100 personnel in there. The fact that the whole parking lot was full and they've parked other places tells me that they exceeded that amount of personnel in there. They exceeded the 100 personnel. And there's been no fire inspection done, no building inspection, there's no certificate of occupancy, no business license, so no one other than workers should have been in that building. So no events should have been held in that building, because there has not been deemed that it's been fire or building safe at all.
He did have a permit. 45-day permit was issued.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Please.
that was never approved.
Oh, I see, okay.
Also, picture from Ray's Boom Boom Room that has a fence that they put up after hours and then removed. That is a primary means of egress out of that building, and it is blocked. No permit to put that up, and they store it behind the building. There's other pictures of that.
Are you saying that's a fire safety
That
hazard?
is a fire life safety hazard right there.
Okay.
That is a primary exit out of that building. There's only 2, one out the front, one out the side. There's an exit sign located over top of it, which designates it as a primary exit, that it would lead you right into that corralled area with no way to get out.
Are we talking about the Gratiot at the Total Life?
The chief was speaking about Ray's Boom Boom Room and the temporary fence that they put up on the weekends.
I'll advise Ray O'Shea to take that fence down.
So just for a little,
That's not the total experience, though.
so just for a little clarity for me, you are not turning this into a nightclub. This is
No.
not going to be an after-hours type thing. You are renting it to people who will thereby bring their own entertainment in. You are just essentially housing it.
And their own catering until the health department approves any type of food preparation.
Okay, and you will own the business, you're not managing, well, you'll be manager owner,
It's
correct?
just Mr. Glover, yes, he's left the other business, this is his business.
So you no longer will have any association with Ray's Boom Boom Room?
And for clarification for me on that note, has the State of Michigan licenses on the Laurel website still lists you as president, treasurer, secretary, everything of Ray's Boom Boom Room?
He is of the LLC, he hasn't shut down the LLC, but I believe that the business is renting on a month-to-month basis. I don't even know how much longer it's going to be there, and I don't represent that business. But I believe that any membership units that Mr. Glover has, if they still want to continue to use that name, will be sold or transferred to the other gentleman, Ray O'Shea, if they want to keep that name. But it's basically the management company that was running the bar owned by, right, somebody else, Matt Miller. And if Mr. Glover leaves, I suppose Ray would want that name, so I believe that he's going to be transferring his membership units. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So I have a question
Okay,
for you. So I have a question for you. You mentioned that if he leaves, just a few moments ago, you said he had already disconnected from the business.
Well, he hasn't changed his membership units yet, so but you've disconnected from the business as far as participating in management of Ray's?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I understand her problem.
Can I?
In one breath, you said he'd left the business, and then in the next breath, you said if he leaves. So
Well, I
which
should
is
have
it?
said when.
Has he left or has he not?
He hasn't transferred his shares yet, but he's left the business.
Ms. Naylor?
Okay, so,
He's left management of the business, and so the name is still there.
so the package we received was in review to a site plan for this current location. And it was mentioned when the gentleman came to the podium that you guys have submitted a new site plan as of today.
Yes, ma'am.
So my question, Chair, we're looking at old information, or are we going to have a chance to look at the new information? Should we be having the approval of a site plan and you got a new one? And we got information last week on an old one.
Ms. Brzezowski?
Thanks, Chair. And thanks. That's a great question, Commissioner Naylor. Right now, we're discussing the special land use request. And if we move to approve or deny or table the special land use request, then we go into the site plan review. But first, we discuss the special land use according to the 8 standards listed in your packet. So if this use is harmonious with the master plan, if the use is harmonious with existing character, if the use is a hazard or disruptive to the community, if the use is an improvement to the community, if the use is adequate to the public services and facilities, if the use is excessive or additional costs to public services, if the use has more odor, vibration, noise, glare, fume, pollution, and if it's consistent with the intent of the zoning ordinance. The last standard is for us to dive into the site plan review. But right now, we have all of the information in the room to discuss the special land use.
I just want to correct something, Commissioner Lubeck, because I'm sorry if this project was, I just recently became involved in it. I am going through surgery next week. I'm having some issues transporting and so forth. But what I was trying to say is, he may choose to keep his LLC because it's to use for something else, but we haven't discussed transferring the membership to Mr. O'Shea, but I believe that was the game plan. I asked him that because he did file the articles of organization, but just because you file articles of organization doesn't mean that you're an owner of that LLC or corp. So I don't know that they have a membership interest to split, so that's why I should have said when, but those issues have to be discussed because the business is not doing that well. They don't own the premises. I'm not sure if that management will continue by Mr. O'Shea or not. If Mr. Glover dissolves Ray's Boom Boom Room, and then Mr. O'Shea can go ahead and utilize the name once it's dissolved. Is that your plan, to dissolve that LLC?
Yes.
Okay, so he's going to dissolve it, and I'll look into it and make sure the paperwork's filed with Laura and take care of that.
I had a question in regards to the parking, because I believe you mentioned that you're going to be looking to find some parking agreements maybe with the used car lot. So that whole block is going to become a medical dispensary at some point.
A medical marijuana dispensary?
Yes, the entire block is going to become a common citizen business. So I don't know how you would get a parking agreement with the gentleman with the used car lot if we're going to have a medical dispensary, because if I remember correctly, they are going to be using that parking lot directly behind the building. Am I correct in that?
Wait, it's the gas station, though, not the car lot, so I guess I misspoke. Who is the agreement with?
The gas station.
The gas station?
Yes.
Okay, so that's who, this gentleman owns the gas station because he wrote his agreement on a receipt, so it was
You wrote it on a receipt?
estimate, not a receipt. He typed it. To whom it may regard, I am the owner of NRO Automotive, and Leon Glover, my new neighbor and owner of Total Experience, is allowed to use my parking and occurrences when he needs it. Your neighborhood mechanic, Abraham Ed.
I do believe that that agreement would have to be worked through with Mr. Albright and the city,
Okay.
and I don't know if that would be sufficient for your needs.
We'd want something a little more formal than that.
We have a shared parking agreement.
And I think that would be a good idea to utilize the shared parking agreement. This was just handed to me when I walked in tonight. And also, he's considering valet once the event hall gets up and running. And he would have to rent space somewhere else to have the cars parked so they wouldn't overflow on the street. As far as there's 79 spots, but I think there's some flooding in that parking lot, so I'm not sure if all the spots are usable. Are they usable?
The parking lot is atrocious. I think Jimmy Hoff is in one of the potholes. It's horrible.
Yeah, well, he got, at least it came the way it was. It wasn't his fault, and he's planning on fixing it.
I would think the landlord should do that for you, just on a side note.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Mark is here tonight. I thought he'd be here.
No, he's not here.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that. I know there was a comment that talked about Mr. Glover buying the building, but to clarify, he is a tenant.
Okay. We're very aware, I think this entire community is aware, and yes, there are a lot of people that have been here for a long time. My family's been here since 1939. I ain't going anywhere. I'm the last of my people. And there are a lot of people here that absolutely adore this city, and we all love it for different reasons and different ways. And we have all experienced event halls. We've all experienced nightmares of Roma Hall. We've experienced issues at East Point Manor. There are valid concerns that we have to hear. And just because people don't agree with something doesn't mean it's not important to others. And this is why we go through this process. We ask the questions. And I just wanted that out there. Nobody's trying to shut anyone down or stop their opportunities. Trying to get to the bottom of everything. That's it.
Maybe it would be best to table this until the other site plan has been forwarded to members of the commission, and the photometrics and some of the additional work that's been done. I mean, I know that would be disappointing to you, but I would be happy to come back if necessary at the next meeting.
Before we go to that, Ms. Naylor has a comment.
I did want to state about the fact that the security levels, which was raised, and just for clarification, to rent facilities now, there are mandatory, even for banquet halls like the Shriners, Silver Gardens, and Southwood Road. I've done events there since 2008. I wanted to throw an event there this year, and you're required a minimum of so many for every guest over a certain number. So we do live in a different environment today. So I do want to commend you for addressing security, because we do have a different world in which we live around gathering spots. So that is something that is going to probably see more of, no more than we have to go with clear bags or no purse just to go to a sporting events today. Not fair to women, but we have to put the bags down. And the other thing was about some of the improvements to the space. After hearing that you're not the owner, and there was a laundry list of things, trees, planting, striping, and all of that, how much control do you have over that? Is that something that your lease dictates you're going to do? And the question being, how do we make sure that gets done? We put the requirements of what we do want in that space, but if you're not the owner, have you and your lessor have come up with some terms how that's going to be met and some timeframes?
He already has contacted the landscaper, who called me actually on the 4th of July, and I forwarded him the requirements for one ornamental tree and one deciduous tree and where they need to be placed, because there was a diagram also provided with the McKenna plan. And so Leon is planning on covering the cost of that, and the landscaper will provide all the information requested, the type of soil, the type of tree, and where it's going to be planted. As far as Mark. As far as the landlord, at this point, Mr. Glover, a lot of places are often rented where people have to build them out and leave the fixtures behind. And they did talk, we did have a talk about the fire suppression system. The landlord wasn't willing to do it at this time or split the cost of it, so Mr. Glover agreed to the 100-person cap, including personnel. As far as the other improvements, he is, I believe, taking them on himself. I don't know if they have some sort of arrangement for a lower rent to be paid for these first few months. I know, no? Okay, so, but you're gonna take on all the repairs?
Yes, I've been,
And as a builder and a contractor, I get a lot of these build-outs, and a lot of times, I know a lot of people are anxious, and I love the spirit of entrepreneurship, it's very important. However, we can't overstep the safety of the building when it's going to be a gathering place of the public. So I would really recommend a step back and meeting with the building and safety, so you have a roadmap of all that's required. So as you're doing that work, you can be approved and move your business forward. There is a reason why we have these safety mechanisms in place, and I deal with this with entrepreneurs a lot. I could do it myself. It's not about whether you do it or someone else does it. The permitting process is a safety, then we know that there's going to be a licensed inspector that will confirm it is safe for the public. The last thing I wanted to mention about the parking, because I know many of the residents in those neighborhoods want the harmonious community. And big events can make a difference in a neighborhood. I don't know how often they'll be of size that, I don't know what happened last weekend, but when you have a lot of cars, I know we talked about looking at this from an occupancy rate, and part of this is a question maybe to all of us. I mean, we don't know how many people are going to drive in a car to an event. Can that really truly be a basis, and this maybe to the attorney, that we're going to say instead of doing square footage, we do occupancy? I don't know that 3 people are going to come to an event. Every time I go to something, it's just me, so I don't know if it's going to be
How many
3
will be
people
in a
my
car, yeah.
I just wonder if that's going to be a good basis, maybe we look at, entertain something else.
Mr. Albright, you were leaning in. Did you have a?
Well, with regard to the special land use this evening, the commission's job is to take all the information together and make certain findings, and then either grant or recommend to the city council that the special land use be granted, or recommend with conditions, or deny. So those are the 3 options. And of course, there's always the option to table, which is something that the Planning Commission may want to consider, regardless of what its decision is, apart from tabling. This portion of their request this evening needs to go to the city council for their consideration. So if the Planning Commission is in receipt of new information, tabling may be something that is appropriate, so this commission can make the most informed decision based on all of the information that's available.
So is your unofficial recommendation to table?
I believe that's what Ms. Dare was going to do when she and I spoke just prior to the meeting starting this evening, based for that reason that there was new information that was just recently submitted.
So are we looking to table item A and B?
I believe that's what Ms. Dare has had requested. We've already conducted the public hearing this evening, so that portion is closed. So if this meeting or this was tabled to, say, either the August or September meeting, it would be then for the special land use consideration and also site plan.
That's right. I think he needs a little more time. He was contacted by the city inspector to set up inspections, and he did call and say we're still in the process of repairing because there was a plumbing problem they had to fix as well that they discovered, and beside the 2 gas leaks that were left by the prior owner. As far as dealing with building and safety, that's an excellent idea, and Mr. Glover will be happy to meet with them and make sure that all the permits necessary are received. But I think because these requirements were presented, they were a little overwhelming for Mr. Glover. I tried to help him as much as possible to go through and understand everything, communicate with the landlord and with the architect, but maybe a little bit more time for him to make his presentation in a manner which is in compliance with everything that's requested by the commission, I think would be a good idea. Do you agree?
Mr. Chair, I would also indicate, I think that it should be made very clear, though, that if this matter is adjourned or tabled tonight, that no events take place at that site while the city is still considering the application.
Do you understand that, Mr. Glover?
Yes.
Absolutely, no events.
And that would, of course, be for the safety of the public as well as anybody that would be attending any events at the site.
Chair?
Yes.
City Attorney, is that while the city is considering the special land use request or until the applicant has received a business license and certificate of occupancy and underwent the formal fire and building inspections?
I would recommend that until it's received special land use approval and been inspected by the fire department and received the proper licensing from city administration.
I agree, and Mr. Glover understands.
And if I may, City Attorney, what are repercussions should something be reported to administration or PD?
Building department could issue a citation, and whoever is the responsible party would be required to answer that citation over in the 30th District Court.
Understood.
Chair. So I don't know what the planning commission decides, but we do have some questions that we have within our packet on page 3 and 4. And this is items that we need important information on. It might be a helpful exercise to go through these items and see if we have all of the information in the room today and understand if we need to table or make a formal decision. Oh, I'm sorry, it's on page 3 and 4 of your packet. It's, page 3 and 4 of the review letter. That's just an idea. That might help the applicant as well understand what information they need to provide to move forward. Because these are all valid concerns that we do need more information on and to address in order to make a decision upon recommendation of anything.
What concerns are those? Are they listed on pages 3 and 4? Because my copy is over there, so I don't have it in front of me.
I'll leave it to the planning commission to open discussion on those items, unless you'd like me to help facilitate.
Oh, hold on. Ms. Uwinski is nodding her head.
Yeah, I think we should have further discussion on everything while everybody is here and take in that information, because I had additional questions as
May
well.
I get my copy then, please? It's in my file.
Please.
I just need some clarity. We're looking at page 3 and 4. Is that under the heading of recommendations?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Why don't you take us through it point by point?
Okay, thank you. So the first item is that we need clarity on Mr. Glover, Ms. Dahl.
Dare.
Dare.
It's okay, I messed up your name as well.
It's okay. In Planning Commission, operators play a key role in ensuring the use is not hazardous to the community. It is unclear if the proposed use will be hazardous or disruptive, which is a standard from the Special Land Use Review, to the community because the operator's relationship with Ray's Boom Boom Room, which is a restaurant dance hall at 21530 Gratiot, has a relationship with Ray's Boom Boom Room. The business license application submitted March 16, 2023, listed Leon Glover as the applicant and Ray's Boom Boom Room as the business. Fire chief just mentioned that Ray's Boom Boom Room's manager is the applicant, Leon Glover. A revised subsequent business license listed Leon Glover as the Total Experience Banquet Hall LLC as the business. So there's references to Ray's Boom Boom Room, and we need to understand what is the relationship with Leon Glover to Ray's Boom Boom Room. Since 2017, and Ray's Boom Boom Room is relevant because since 2017, the East Point Police Department has documented 120 runs to Ray's Boom Boom Room. Recently, in 2022 alone, East Point Police Department had 60 runs to Ray's Boom Boom Room. Incidents included assaults, larcenies, attempted murder, narcotic-related offenses. The applicant has not sufficiently addressed these concerns that lead to criminal or disruptive conduct. And we need to understand that the charges from Ray's Boom Boom Room will not continue to Total Experience Banquet Hall, so we just need more information on that item. That's the first item.
Okay, that's understood, but they weren't even, Ray's Boom Boom Room wasn't even an LLC till 2019. So what happened in 2017 and 18 with the East Point Police had nothing to do with Ray's Boom Boom Room. I submitted copies of the Articles of Organization. That's when Ray's Boom Boom Room started. It started in September of 2019, and it closed during COVID for the next year. I don't have any physical copies of any of these alleged runs, but again, there were no tickets issued to Mr. Glover or the other operator, Ray O'Shea. There were no MLCC violations issued. These incidents happened in the parking lot when the police were called. Mr. O'Shea gladly shared the video with the police. They have a good relationship. So that's what happened there, but that business is a separate business. This move to Total Experience for Mr. Glover just happened kind of pretty quickly, and he wanted to get the ball rolling. So as I stated earlier, he utilized that name in the first application, and because he was not positive that his new LLC had been filed by his daughter, it was indeed filed, and I provided copies of both LLCs in my response with my letter of June 28th. And once he saw that the Articles of Organization for Total Experience LLC were registered by Laura on March 22nd, 2023, a revised application was filed with the correct name. So again, Ray is going to stay at Ray's, and Leon Glover is going to solely, totally be involved with Total Experience LLC.
All right, hold on for a second. So you've told us that your association with Ray's is done. So that part of this is handled.
Okay.
So it's
Thank
done.
you.
And then as far as the police runs in 17 and 18, when you weren't associated with it, that is irrelevant too. But we do not disregard the fact that there were 60 calls in 2022. Whether there were violations cited or not, anytime a police officer is dispatched somewhere, it's an issue. But I respect the fact that there was no citation, you didn't get in trouble with anybody, but police calls are still a police call. But I think we just need to move past the fact that you're done with them.
And there's no
This is your
alcohol
new
being
business.
served at this event space. At least initially, there's no liquor license. I think sometimes that makes a difference. Some of the bars that I've worked with, who are sport bars or different kinds of restaurants, people have alcohol, and they sometimes have issues that occur outside of the bar, and the police are called by the owners often just to keep the peace. So,
I've got two questions from the table, Mr. Lubeck, and then Ms. Ulinsky, you're up.
Ms. Lubeck?
Yes.
I understand you're saying that Ray's Boom Boom Room is off the table and done. I'm sorry, but I don't feel that way because you said the Total Experience LLC was March 22nd, 2023?
It was filed by Laura on March 23rd. It was filed on March 16th by
Okay.
his daughter.
Thank you for that clarification on the dates. But on Laura's site, all the Ray's Boom Boom Room president, director, and all the other positions are also as of March 2023. Now, if you are, excuse me,
I'm sorry.
if you are totally done with that, you would have filed everything then and there while you were filing for the LLC. So for me, the proof is in the pudding, and when those papers are filed, then you're done.
Well, the annual report has to be filed every year, or you are penalized and have to pay an extra thing. His daughter handles administrative, so whatever might pass her desk as some sort of, filing of the annual report probably was done. But as far as him discontinuing his association with Ray's Boom Boom Room, that wouldn't be filed with Laura. That would be a transfer of membership to Ray O'Shea. Simply because you file articles of organization do not make you an owner. You have to have an operating agreement which says who gets what in a business. So if Ray O'Shea wants to keep the name Ray's Boom Boom Room LLC, then those membership units will be transferred, which I do often for people when there's two people working together on a project. It's kind of like a divorce, and I'm happy to transfer Mr. Glover's units to Mr. O'Shea if he wants to continue using that name and having that LLC. If he doesn't, then I'll file the dissolution papers.
So,
Yes.
thank you for that, Dance. But my question is,
I don't think it's a dance.
not with Ray's Boom Boom Room LLC, it shows Mr. Glover as president, director, and is that what you're talking about when you're saying his shares? Can you clarify that for
There would be a
everyone?
consent resolution where he no longer would hold those positions, as well as transferring his membership in, their membership units in an LLC and shares in a corporation. So they have a membership unit certificate, and those would be transferred if Mr. O'Shea wants to keep that name. If he wants, otherwise, he can dissolve the LLC. So a consent resolution would be prepared by me, removing him from those offices. I will just need to discuss that with him before he decides which path to go on. I didn't mean it to be a dance. I was trying to explain the options.
Okay, I'm still struggling here. I don't care what the name of the business is that's had all the problems. The principal, operator, manager, director, whatever it was Mr. Glover.
Is that true?
And there is an abysmal track record of handling problems there. Matter of fact, there's no track record of handling problems there. It doesn't matter whether the business was cited or not. There were problems that were there that continued to happen again and again and again and again and again. Now, that same manager who's going to be, we're being told is going to be directing this new business, I have seen nothing that's going to make me believe that there's a 180-degree turnaround and everything is going to be perfect at the new place. I'm sorry, his reputation precedes him here.
Were you the main manager or was Ray? Ray said he
Since
was
we have
the
a
main
hard
manager.
stop,
Wasn't named
they
manager,
have
it was the same
mentioned that
manager.
there's going to be a dissolution, as she's stating, your articles of corporation, naming presidents and all, doesn't automatically align with the operating agreement. We don't know the operating agreement that the partnership has, and if she's telling us it's going to be dissolved and we're going to consider tabling this, I think we should maybe use our time, since we do have a hard stop at 8:30, so we can do our training if possible. 9:30, I mean, we already got an hour in, and she has already answered that, so if you could, Mr. Chair.
And that would give you time to file your paperwork too.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Okay, thank you. Then the second item, and this is a conversation, so we might have received some more.
Hold on. I do have one more question, or a question. There was a point of reference made that there's no liquor license right now. And what is the game plan for that down the road? I mean, to me, that's critical because you're coming in here and selling this as a family-friendly environment, anniversaries, wedding parties, birthday parties, kids' parties, I don't know. But a liquor license does change that formula. For me, that's not the same thing. So what is the game plan there?
Initially, Mr. Glover did want to buy the liquor license that came with the hall. That's why he applied as a banquet or catering hall. But that was sold by the owner. So he has changed course on that for now, and liquor licenses on hold. There are very few of them around, and they're very expensive. If one of the parties is a nonprofit, for instance, and they want to pull a special permit with MLCC to benefit that nonprofit, he may utilize that, which is allowed 6 times a year. But right now, the plans for liquor license are tabled. If that changes, I'm sure he would have to get approval from the city, but I don't see that happening for quite a while. The business isn't even open yet. He hasn't made funds, and he wants to just establish the banquet hall. I know we discussed the fact that people may want a beer or wine at a wedding, so he may look for what he really truly wanted is a beer or wine license. so he could supply that for weddings or anniversary parties. Again, I don't know that there's one available in Macomb County, so we have a broker who was looking around for a beer and wine license. He hasn't come up with anything at this point.
Real quick for city administration, what is the process when an applicant changes the way the direction on something like that and they want a license that currently they don't have? What is the process?
That is a very good question, Commissioner. For instance, we recently learned that if you have a regular liquor license, but you allow dancing, as some entities mentioned tonight might have had, you are required to get an entirely different liquor license.
No, it's a permit, just a dance permit. There's not an entire.
There's an entirely different liquor license required if dancing is allowed on the premises. So I would assume that.
Yeah, that's not true.
before-
I do a ton of liquor license
Would that
work.
have to
It's a permit for dance and
Chair?
entertainment. There's
Please.
no different liquor license for dancing on the premises. I'm in the process of doing
Chair?
transfers.
Let's let Mrs. Brush this, go on.
Okay, great question. So right now, we're applying for a banquet hall / catering hall, correct?
Event hall.
Okay, are we serving food?
Right now, the food is catered. Yes.
Okay, so, I think there's just some miscommunication here. You can still apply for your catering banquet hall, 100%, especially if you have the intent to use the kitchen, and serve food. But there'd just be a note on your license that said, no alcohol is allowed.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay.
So, are you planning on serving alcohol?
I'm sorry.
Are you planning on serving alcohol?
There's no liquor license.
Okay.
Let me rephrase my question then. What is the process if an applicant changes direction? They come and they want to get that type of permit from the city. Does that go in front of a board, or is that an administrative decision?
That goes before City Council.
City council has
City
to
Council,
approve
so
that.
if the Liquor Control Commission, if it's a new license,
Yep.
it starts with a resolution before City Council approval, and then it goes for further approval before the state. If it is a transfer, the state has to approve that there is the ability to transfer that license, and it is still approved, has to be approved through resolution by City Council.
So city council actually.
Correct, just like
Okay,
the billiards room.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Chair? Okay. And so I was saying that we might already have answers to these items, so we could address these and then ask the applicant if we need any more information. So 2, the applicant has not explained what services will be provided at the subject site and the nature of the business and operations. But today we heard that it was going to be for birthdays, weddings, banquet-style lunches and dinners. So I think that question's answered. The applicant cannot operate a banquet catering hall without a liquor license. We just discussed that. If alcohol will be served or consumed, alcohol could still be consumed. Patrons could still bring their own alcohol on the premise. An explanation must be provided regarding the applicant's intent on operating the banquet hall without a liquor license. So we talked about that, but do you have any other follow-up questions?
Anybody? Moving on.
Okay. 3, no plans were provided to ensure that the site has adequate parking. City administration seeks acknowledgement from the applicant and his patrons that parking will not be permitted on adjacent House and Bell Avenue. I believe we received notification that the applicant will not allow parking on Bell and House Avenue, or will guide their patrons to park elsewhere.
It's one of the reasons for a security guard, so they can let Mr. Glover
Okay.
know if he's inside directing a wedding reception that someone is parked there, get the license plate number, and make an announcement for them to move their car like you did over the weekend. Is this parking?
Can I jump in real quick?
Gonna be able to come back?
I thought I understood you to say that there was going to be like a service that would park cars. I thought I heard you say that.
No, I didn't say that there would be. I said he's investigating getting valet to be able to have cars
Okay, so
parked
there's still
elsewhere.
open question.
But right now, he has an agreement with, is this where this medical marijuana dispensary is going to go or
That's
not?
not it. That's the
Okay.
gas station
What is the gas station?
next
This?
door.
Where you're able to park?
Yes, right next door.
So apparently he's got temporary use of the gas station next door. That's not going to be a medical marijuana dispensary. I'll have to go take a look at it and see what's going on there.
Chair.
And there'll be I believe that, Commissioner Lewinsky said there was a form, a shared parking form, and I'm going to have him get a copy of that.
Ms. Broszewski.
Thank you. We definitely encourage shared parking agreements within the city. We think that's a useful way to use underutilized parking lots. However, we need to verify who we're entering our shared parking agreements with, because if you want me to put a little sidebar here, the gas station adjacent to this north of your site needs to seek a special land use. So they will be coming towards Planning Commission in August to file for a special land use request, and there's no active business license on the site. So, we're gonna have to tease that one out a little bit more in the interim.
Well, he owns the parking lot there, though, so he could use the parking.
I'm not sure if you signed with the business owner, I'm sorry, Chair. I don't know who we're talking with here, if it's the business owner, property owner, but just so everyone knows, that is not an active business. They do not have the authority to run their business because they do not have a special land use.
Okay.
And there's a new owner. There's a new owner. That's why. Thanks, Kim, for Assistant City Manager.
Moving on.
Thank you. Okay, 4, right, Commissioner Naylor? 4?
Yes.
No confirmation is provided that the applicant will provide an annual report to the planning department describing any ordinance citations issued in the preceding year. Such violations, depending on severity, could result in revocation of a special land use permit. This was addressed in Ms. Dare's letter. Thank you. I'm trying.
Yeah, Mr. Glover will
So we're
provide
good with
an
this
annual
one,
report to the
right?
planning department.
We're good with, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Dare. No clarity or information was provided on the occupancy load. Okay, that's true. The applicant has verbally informed city administration intends on hosting events of 200 patrons per International Fire Code Section 903.2.1.2. An automatic sprinkler system is required for occupancy over 100 people. And we think that Mr. Glover understands the seriousness of this issue. A fire could result in the loss of life. Mr. Glover would need to install an automatic sprinkler system.
It's in the letter that you're reading from that I sent you, that he's agreeing to a 100-person limit, including employees. It's in writing.
Chair,
Go ahead.
This letter
does the
was-
planning commission find that this is adequately addressed?
How do we feel about this?
She addressed it, yes.
Yes, it's addressed, it's 100 people.
Said 100 people or less.
Then
Committing to
there's
100 people or less. Okay.
Fire suppression wall in the kitchen as well. Okay.
No.
What is,
Chair.
So he's agreed to it with residents, or with
Okay.
occupancy not to exceed 100, and the employees. Now, here's the question, outside security, would outside security be considered one of those individuals?
If they remain outside, they would not be considered. It's up to 100 personnel, including staff, inside the building at any given time.
do you understand?
Yes.
I think the architect wanted to add something to one of your points here regarding parking.
Chair,
Would he be
is
allowed
that,
to?
is that okay?
Go ahead.
With an agreement that we are saying that there's a maximum occupancy of 100, then based on the number of parking spaces, we park the site and then some. So the parking should no longer be an issue, and it meets your ordinance and code.
So you're saying that they can.
With 62 parking spaces, with
79 is what they-
78, with the three per person car code, that's your own code. That means theoretically they get, and then they are also saying, if we do get a sprinkler system, we can go up to 186 people based on your own code. So the parking should be a non-issue.
Thank you.
I think we're on to number 5, number 6.
Yes, Chair, I was just reviewing on page 15 if we did want to enter a conversation about parking, but we're focusing on a special land use. Okay. 6, no information was provided on occupancy load and hours of operation. Did I do this one? No. City administration recommends occupancy not to exceed 100 based on fire code suppression regulations, available parking options at the subject site, and taking into consideration various noise categories. Okay, so not only do we recommend having a 100-person cap, but because of the International Fire Code regulations, but also due to the sensitive nature of the business and the neighboring residential community, we recommend a cap of 100. That's what this standard is saying.
That's fine.
Do you have any conversations with that?
So in theory, with 100 people, there would be absolutely no parking on the streets anywhere. In theory.
Okay.
Somebody's missing the point because this goes back to when this was Carpenter's Hall.
Chair.
There's no parking on House and Bell up to Dodge.
Yes, Ms. Roszewski.
Chair, we want to hear from the public, but at the appropriate times, there's additional public comment later on.
And there is, just for clarity, there is a no parking sign that is completely obscured by trees in the right-of-way at the first house directly behind the hall. So the sign is there. If you could see it, maybe you would adhere to it, I don't know. But there is a sign. So if people are parking there, they're parking illegally.
Whose responsibility is it to trim the tree?
Good question.
Is this, Chair, is this a question on the property?
Yeah.
To trim the trees on the property?
No, the tree that obscures
You
the
can't-
no parking sign by the first house
You
on the
can't
street.
see the no parking sign at
It's
all.
not on his property.
It's there.
Okay, should we move on?
Yes.
Number 7, no information or clarity was provided on the proposal to provide 6 security guards during the site events. Private security is not typical of assembly halls. Private security anticipates the need for additional police involvement. I learned today that the security would help guide traffic not to park on the residential streets. Is this item addressed?
Any questions down here? Okay.
Okay, that wraps up the special land use standards.
So, I know there was some talk about tabling the special land use. What is the consensus? Mr. Albright, any thoughts?
Mr. Chair, the Planning Commission could make a motion to recommend site plan or special land use approval to the City Council. It could do so with special considerations attached. It could deny it, or it could table it. So if the Planning Commission believes that it has enough information and that the standards set forth in the city's ordinance have been evaluated and the Planning Commission is satisfied that those have been met, then they can make a recommendation of approval to the City Council.
Thoughts from the building department or from the planner?
Thank you, Chair. I would take a minute to review the special land use standards and 1 through 8, maybe 5 minutes, understand if you have sufficient information, and after 5 minutes, understand if there's a motion on the table, and go for a vote.
Okay. Mr. Lubeck.
Okay, maybe in all this discussion, I got a little sidetracked. But I thought there had been a request by the applicant to table the special land use till next month. I wanted to know if that was the case, or if that has changed, or just what is the pleasure of the applicant?
Well, now that a lot of the issues have been delved into and explained more fully, I just thought because of the new site plan that was just submitted today, that the commission may need more time to go through the issues that were presented, but it appears as though they've been adequately addressed. So if the commission wanted to move forward, that's fine with my client. He knows he still has to meet with planning and safety and get permits and deal with resolving, getting out of the Raise Boom Boom LLC. All of those things will be accomplished. So if the commission wants to move forward, we can withdraw the request to table. Is that right, Mr. Glover?
That's right, correct.
Chair? So the special land use is under consideration today, and we were deciding if we want to table or make any formal motion on this topic. The site plan is a different story, and yes, we did get new information today on the site plan, but that's the next agenda item.
Okay.
Thank you.
In that case, at the request of the city planner, Ms. Brazaszewski, I'd like to suggest a 10-minute recess so that she may review what she needs to do and may then advise us as to the appropriateness of language and concern for making a motion on the special land use.
We have motion. Looking like being on the spot, do we have support for a 10-minute break?
I support.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Lubeck?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor?
No.
Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Chairman DeHunt?
No. It passes. 10 minutes. Smoke them if you got them.
Thank you for allowing us to present.
She's going to kill you.
based on only
I need to get one of these for real life.
Bigger.
Yeah. All right, folks. Mara, what have you concluded? As we put you on the spot.
Okay, Chair, Planning Commission. We have a recommendation to approve the special land use for an assembly hall at 24611 Gratiot with conditions. So parcel number 021430204050. And based on the following findings of fact. One, the subject site and the use is considered to be harmonious with the master plan as outlined in page 6. It's within the future land use district of regional commercial, and Assembly Hall is a regional commercial use. The following standards: 2, harmony with existing character, through 8. I'll read them off. So we believe that the project, with the new information presented today, is harmonious with or could be harmonious with the existing character, and could be not considered hazardous or disruptive. It could be an improvement to the community. There could be adequate public facilities, and it could not be, it could be considered not excessive and additional to public service costs. And there could not be additional smoke, fume, glare, noise, odor, vibrations. And it could be considered consistent with the intent of zoning ordinance if we impose the following conditions. So the first condition would be, let me get there again. Hold on. The applicant must provide an annual report to Planning Department describing any ordinance citations issued in the preceding year, and such violations, depending on severity, could result in the revocation of a special land use permit. And these such violations that could result in the revocation of the special land use permit are any parking on House or Bell Street during an event, if the occupancy load exceeds 100 patrons, if there are excessive police department runs, if they don't file their annual report, and if there's alcohol consumption on the premise.
Without a license.
In general.
Well, they did say that they would be seeking a license, potentially
without
seeking
a
a
license.
license at some point.
Without a license. Chair,
Please.
City Attorney.
This is the recommendation of city administration. Ultimately, the planning commission is going to be deciding whether these findings of fact are accurate, and then making a recommendation to the city council. Mara is just saying that it could be that these findings of, she's basically giving the planning commission proposed findings of fact. Ultimately, the planning commission decides if those findings of fact actually have been met.
So I actually was leaning towards tabling this for a couple of reasons. The first reason is it would give Mr. Glover the opportunity to dissolve his business relationship and remove the association with Ray's Boom Boom Room that might offer a little bit more comfort to some of our residents to know that that business has nothing to do with Total Experience. That's one thought. And then I noticed that you, in your thoughts, you were using the words could. It would be nice if in the next month, if the commission approved it, to table it, that those coulds can turn into wills. As opposed to, it could do this, it will do this. It would be nice that we held everything to that standard. That's kind of where I was hoping it would go. I don't know what my fellow commissioners think, and I would be interested for their input if we wish to take a vote tonight or if we wish to table.
With the conditions, I'm okay with approving it, with the conditions,
With the conditions that Mara has outlined.
and in addition of your dissolution of the partnership.
Okay. Thoughts from the left here?
I don't believe I heard anything in there that there will be no activity, other, business-related activity with rental occupancy events there until they've received all the appropriate permits and certificate of occupancy and business license approved. I don't believe that was in there.
These are just the proposed findings of fact that city administration is going through. The motion by the planning commission could be to recommend special land use approval because the findings of fact have been established. So there you're affirming the proposed findings of fact as listed by Mara. And then if the maker of the motion wants to add additional conditions to that approval recommendation, the member could do that.
Okay.
But other than that, I'm not going to do it because if it gets support, we have to go right to a vote. But I would agree with Mr. DeHaan that this might better be tabled until certain other issues are addressed.
I agree with that. I think it should be tabled.
What date would that be in August?
The first Thursday.
August of
To have you establish the line.
Do you want,
Mr. Chair, could we also set forth what those additional concerns are? So city administration can also meet with the applicant to address those. So when this comes back before the board at a future date, those issues can be ironed out ahead of time.
Ms. Brzezowski?
Chair, Planning Commission, I have no more information needed. This is all of the information that we need to write another recommendation. This is the recommendation that we have. And the conditions were phrased in the way with the language could, but I can easily restate all of those and say the applicant will, based on the following conditions, or with the following conditions.
I would object to the parking because if he is not there for a half hour and someone parks on the street and the security guard can't get hold of him and he gets a ticket, then he's violating it. So it has to be a reasonable time to have him remove any patrons. Also, it'd be nice if the no parking sign was visible to whoever.
Ma'am, can we get you on the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. May I have permission?
Yes.
Everything that was addressed, it seems agreeable and reasonable, and especially no use of the venue until the occupancy and building permits and everything is business license has been, all the inspections are done, has been gained. That's made clear to Mr. Glover. And the only issue I had was like an automatic violation if someone parks on Bell Street in case he's not there and the security guard tries to get a hold of him to have them find out who the patron was, if it was in fact a patron there, if an announcement had to be made. I mean, I would give him an adequate time to have any of those cars removed rather than he will be given a violation. I don't think that's fair. But also, perhaps that tree could be cut back so the no parking sign would show, and when there's no parking, people should expect to get a ticket. But one of the things I suggested to him is to put in emails confirming the catering event that there's no parking on those streets and cars will be towed if they park there. And he can arrange that if he has to call a towing service as well. So that might be a way to stop people from parking there.
Ms. Ulinski?
I agree with your email thing. That's a great idea to let patrons know ahead of time, but I see that there should be no leeway because there's no way to give a buffer of time from a time a car is parked there till someone sees it and tries to track down. It's no parking, period.
But, I mean, people are gonna.
No parking, period.
So no one can ever park on that street, not just Total
If that's what the
Experience
sign
guests.
says, correct.
It's a no parking zone, and that's Bell Street, correct?
And Haas.
And the whole west part of Haas? Okay.
I would go so far as to say maybe it's in your contract, when you are writing a contract with somebody, that it's stated within that
Oh, that's
contract
an excellent idea.
that you do not park on those streets, because you can't do anymore. I mean, I don't want to see you lose your business because somebody is just not reading what's in your contract.
That's
So if
what
it's in
I'm
the
afraid of.
contract, if you email it, if when people come in, you confirm that, somebody is not parking on those streets, it's going to protect you. So,
May I be
You know,
excused?
just let me say something. I got a real problem with this parking issue, okay? If I go to that establishment and the parking lot's full, I'm gonna park on Haas. And no security guard is gonna tell me I can't park on a public street. And they're just gonna walk right past that security guard and go into the hall.
But there's a no parking sign there by the city,
There's one now, but people park all over that street.
covered with trees.
There's, yeah.
Well, he is planning on looking into a valet service, but he has to get approval first so he can open and make some funds to be able to hire one, because they're not cheap. But he has talked to me about looking for a valet service and figuring out another place where the parking could be. I don't know if there is parking available in another lot for him to have valet. No, not close.
Wasn't there clarification that with
with
the occupancy rate, we had enough parking spaces?
yes. So the only reason why there would be cars on the streets is if it were exceeding occupancy.
Well, there's 79 spots and it's 100, well.
Yeah, there's 79 spots.
But you can't say that there was more than 100 because our parking lots were filled. I went to a function, I thought for sure it was gonna be jam-packed because all the parking lot was filled, there's no parking. And half the place is only empty, everybody come by themselves, I can't agree to that.
Well, if there's 79 spots, and even if we said there are 2 people per car, or one, I mean, it should, yeah.
Half
it
of them are
should
2
be-
people and half are 1, maybe.
Yeah, so
That
I
be
would think
79.
that the parking lot would be sufficient,
Chair,
please,
there are 63 spots
not
at
79.
24611 Gratiot. There is potential to enter shared parking agreement, but that is the other special land use that we're seeing.
It says 79 in the report, so I don't know where 63 is coming from all of a sudden. Do you know how many spots, have you counted the spots there?
Chair?
Mr. Glover?
You get your information wrong.
It's in her report, 79 spots.
Parking provided. 62 plus 2 ADA accessible. It's actually 65, but even at 62 parking spaces.
Is it
even if you go with the-
65 or 62?
We have conflicting information. It says it's 62 parking spaces, but there's also 3 ADA accessible spaces. So a lot of times you don't count those. So there's 65, but even at 1.5, that still puts you over 100 people. So theoretically, if 100 people show up, there's adequate parking. By your metrics. Yeah.
He can add in an email, plan on carpooling, et cetera, but I know I go to a lot of events by myself because I don't want to stay as late. And people, should be responsible for parking, not parking there. And I think if he puts it and makes that effort and puts it in the contract, which is an excellent idea, and also the email confirming the reservation that those streets are no parking and parking is forbidden and cars will be towed, hopefully that will keep the problem down.
Chair? And when you think about the building in a 63, 62 space parking lot, you think that, okay, well, what type of use needs a big parking lot like that? And you would think that the building suits the use of a use or business that generates more traffic, so it does suit the use of an event hall. That's from a planning's perspective. It's not just a regular 10-space parking lot, it's a 63-space parking lot. So any type of use that we have in that building would generate more parking because it has a big parking lot. So it makes sense that there's a use of this nature within that building.
So, where are we at?
Well, the one thing that the city planner said, I think the fourth bullet point you said was if there's excessive violations, was that the term?
Excessive police calls.
We need to define that, right? You know, excessive is a very arbitrary statement, so let's define what that means. Otherwise, we're saying, you know, one person's excessive is another person's not excessive. So we need to define what that number would be.
More than 5 calls a month. Is that what you're saying, something like that?
Mr. Albright?
Mr. Chair, when Mar and I had that discussion, exactly excessive, what does excessive mean? That is up to the planning commission to make that determination. With the recommendation then to the city council, who will ultimately decide on that issue.
Ms. Naylor, what was your?
I was saying we could say something simple as more than 5 calls a month. More than 4 calls of an event or something like that. No more than 2 events. No.
So here's my concern with that, and defining excessive, I totally understand. Is it no matter what the instance is that you're called to the hall for? Well, no, I don't mean emergency. I mean like if it's a fight breaking out, if it's an intoxicated person, if it's somebody that is assault, do they all hold the same weight for a call?
What
Correct.
degree is, yes.
Or if the establishment calls the police because they want to have somebody
Removed.
for some reason, or if there's like a medical emergency, which would not be an abuse of police use.
All good questions, all good points.
But an event hall, typically, an event hall is a gathering of family and friends. It's my birthday, I invited people that I know. A baby shower is people I know. An event hall / banquet hall is a gathering. A 60th birthday, like he's noted, or it's usually a circle of people who were invited by someone. It's not people
And I
just
agree
walking
with,
off the street.
right, and
So
I
if
agree with
there's going to be
that.
an altercation of some sort, doesn't mean family doesn't fight, because sometimes they do. I have 9 brothers and sisters, I know.
Wow.
But it's just keeping it real. I think getting to that degree is just hard to say, you know, based on the severity, based on this. I would just say the time, how many times it occurred.
Well, and I hear you, and with the event halls, it doesn't matter if you're family, friends, or someone walks off the street. The guns coming out are still, family kills family all the time.
There was recently one in St. Clair Shores at Little Mac and Harper. At the venue there, it was a baby shower, and there was some issues between various people that were in various stages of relationship that resulted, I believe, the canine officer ended up as a fatality in that shooting.
But wasn't there a conversation where you were going to install something potentially? Did I hear that? Or- Yes, that. All right, all right.
That's one thing that you would.
But
Mr.
that doesn't
it doesn't
cover
mean
the
that-
parking lot.
Yeah, well, Mr. Albright has a question. He's been waiting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Planning Commission could distinguish as far as police runs that are of a criminal nature. Police runs responding to the event hall because someone is having a medical emergency certainly isn't a criminal matter. Disorderly conduct, assault and batteries, I could go on. But as long as they're not, of a criminal nature, the Planning Commission may want to make that, distinguish that.
So is a domestic dispute a criminal nature?
Yes.
Activity? It is? Okay. All right.
But why is the hall responsible for that if someone has?
Let's get Joe over here if we can. We need you over here, ma'am. If you're I need you in the,
Why would the hall be
Oh, hold on.
responsible for that, for a domestic?
Mr. Chair, it's, we're filming this, so members of the public at home, can understand what's going on. So it's for transparency purposes, so everyone has the information. That's why we need you to speak in the mic.
I apologize.
Yeah, thank
If I know
you.
we're filming, I would have tried to.
I know, right? It's been a day.
Tried, but it's humid out. I think it's unreasonable if there's a domestic dispute between a husband and wife that blows up because she sees some girl that he had an affair with 10 years earlier at some kind of family reunion, to have that be held against the venue. That could happen in a grocery store, and I've seen it happen doing criminal defense. I've seen all sorts of crazy things. But I think if there's the type of crime that Mr. Albright was referring to that occurs as a result of being at the venue, like fighting, excess, an assault, something like that, that 5 calls seems reasonable. Mr. Glover agrees with that.
To me, if somebody's putting hands upon another person, if instruments of harm are being brought out, that's an issue. So to me, that's where it's at. And fists are a weapon, and you can just easily go to jail for beating somebody to death. So,
Oh, I know.
Wanna put that in a sentence, how we can say that, maybe no more than 5 occasion of criminal.
yes.
Chair and Planning Commission, I would recommend if we were to define excessive, to define it using an annual metric, because we'll be reviewing this business on an annual basis.
Okay.
Thank you.
So refresh us, what days of operation do you have?
What days?
Yes. How many days a week?
Mr. Glover, 7 days, correct? Yes. Okay, I think you need to come up here.
That's the other thing, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. In the packet that we had, it said weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's just too much conflicting information going on
Which
here.
packet do you have? The packet you mean from Mara, or the letter that I wrote addressing Mr. Glover's hours? Did you ever say Friday?
I don't have a letter.
This is the packet that was provided to us on Friday.
Okay, so I sent a letter on June 28th addressing all of the concerns, and the Director of Planning graciously said she would make copies for each of you. If not.
It is in the packet.
Okay, and that letter, I don't believe says Friday, Saturday, Sunday, does it? Is that what you told me?
Yes.
Or you're going to be open during the week?
Well, I was speaking of 7 days, I might have a karate class or something of that nature.
So someone who might want to have an event during the week, to honor students or do something, I don't think he should be foreclosed from having events in his own space that he's paying a lot of rent for on any of those days, but he may not be open all of those days.
I
Like he
think
may-
the issue was like to try and figure out how many is an excessive numbers based on how many days you're open. I think that's
Okay.
why I was asking the question.
I
Yeah,
would,
I'd say 3.
3 days a week?
Yeah, about Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
but what if you had an event on another night? I'd say 3 to 4.
Give yourself some latitude if you
Yeah, I
need
would
and say 5.
I would say 5. Because you might have an event Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
I do.
5 is good.
I do believe, I agree with Mr. DeHaan that because we are presenting so many scenarios and so many questions to Mr., forgive me for his name, Mr. Glover, that we may want to table this. Because we're continuously bringing up more and more things and we're asking Mr. Glover questions, and he's giving us answers off the cuff, which may not be able to, you may not be able to stand up to what you're saying.
That's why I said 7 days, so he'd have the option of having an event on any of those days. But he thinks 5 days would be sufficient. And I think he wants to move forward in getting the rest of the place in compliance with building and safety, which he would want some direction as to whether the special use is going to be granted, given, and also that parking lot, if he approaches his landlord to try and maybe split the costs of fixing that, otherwise he's responsible for that. So he'd want to get opened up sooner rather than later. But I believe he did, I guess I was wrong, originally you did say 3 days, but 5 is probably more appropriate. And so that would be the barometer with which to measure the excessiveness. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Boyle?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, I just found in the statement of findings, although the applicant does not provide information on operating standards, the applicant verbally communicated the banquet hall will schedule weekend events only from 4 to midnight, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I think that's where that was driving.
Right, that's where that was, okay.
Okay, but reading in various portions of all this information we've got, I've heard business hours are now 4 to midnight, 3 to midnight, 5 to 11, and I've even seen one that says they're going to operate from noon to midnight. I
Depends on
mean,
the
let's answer a question by just not answering it. Because let's nail this down. You describe the events. Some of those events don't fit these timeframes. Something that was quite usual at East Point Manor was funeral lunches. So you're going to have a funeral, the funeral's going to conclude by noon, but you're not going to have the funeral lunch till 5 p.m.? That's not making sense.
That's why when we discussed the hours, I thought it was better if he had the flexibility to be open for lunch and dinner. But he may not be open every single 7 days a week from 12 noon to 11
Obviously,
p.m.
he's only going to be open when he has clients booked. That's a given.
Okay.
So let's stop trying to confuse it, and let's nail down some hours of operation. Also, wedding and baby showers, typically those are afternoon events. I've been to many halls where they're scooting you out of there at 4 p.m. because they've got to be set up for 6 p.m. for a wedding that night. So, I mean, when you're throwing all these hours around, you're not telling us anything.
Can we make a
I said noon to
recommendation
11
say
p.m.
assume-
That's the hour, what I'm saying. Have the option to be open during those times to conduct events.
During
those
which times?
12 noon. to-
Okay.
To midnight or to 11 p.m.? To midnight, I guess.
Ms. Naylor, you got a,
I was going to say, the point of asking the hours of operation, I believe he was going with to say what would be our annualized excessive
Sure.
number. So we say you're open 7 days for events, and we know you're not going to be booked every day unless you're very fortunate. You might be, we don't know. I personally liked the manner when it was open. But anyway, it might be a situation where, say, if it was open 7 days, noon to noon, we know it's not going to be booked every day. But if it was, let's say an excessive amount would be if you're getting more than, 25 calls a month? So if you annualize that, 300, we said, they had 62 a month at the Boom Boom. So we don't want any more than 30. We don't want any more than 20 for the year, or something like that. Let's just make a number for the annual, no more than 20 a year.
That's not an accurate metric either.
And she asked for
Because
annual.
let's say he only has occupancy 1 day a week. And every time he has occupancy, there's need for police services there.
Then he will lose his license.
Well, not if he's open 7 days a week, because it's only happened once a week.
And he still will lose it. If it's right
That would
away,
be
third
50
time he opens.
occurrences. She's talking about 25 a year, or 20 a year.
In his report, he
You
would
know.
have to say how many days he met and how many times the police were called. So he will give us that information. There's how many meetings we had in the month of January, there's how many times the police were called. On an annualized basis, we would know how many events were held and how many police calls. Some of these, I think we're going a little bit too close in the weeds. If he's going to report how many events were held and how many times the police was called, we're going to have the police calls. We can look at his event book. And then we can make a judgment of what's excessive. But if you want to say no more than, put it in percentages. He should not have more than
3 a month,
10%
36
of
a
his
year.
events causing for conflict, or 5% of his events causing conflict. So we can say what excessive is to us. Excessive is very bland, but it is 9:30.
yes, so.
So we only have one option here, to accept it with these agreements that she said, the fact findings that we have, and whoever filed the motion adds a few others, or we say we dismiss. It's 9:30.
I think we need to table this, and all of these unknown factors that keep popping up, we nail down and be done with it in August. And when we come back in August, everything will be buttoned down, the Ts will be crossed, the Is will be dotted, there will be no questions. Mr. Glover will have the opportunity to disassociate himself officially from the Boom Boom Room. He will start clean with his own business, and we can get, maybe Mr. Albright can determine appropriate percentages and violations and things like that, so we have a fair and consistent application of what we're asking of the man.
That's fair. That makes sense.
So can I get a motion for tabling item A?
I'll make a motion to table item A, considering the recommendation for special land use for Total Experience Banquet Hall LLC, 24611 Gratiot.
Second?
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Lubeck?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, no. And Chairman DeHunt?
Yes.
I will make a motion to table new business item B, considering the approval of the site plan for Total Experience Banquet Hall LLC, 24611 Gratiot Avenue, until the August meeting, which probably also should have been included in the last motion.
We have motion.
Second.
We have motion, support, and the third.
Who supported?
I think Leo did.
Mr. Lubeck?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde? Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor? Ms. Julinski, yes. Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Chairman DeHunt?
Yes. We have no unfinished business, so we are moving on to item 8, second hearing of the public. You're free. You're off the hot seat for the night.
Thank you so much for your kind
Next month.
consideration and understanding. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Have a good night.
Hopefully we'll be more organized when we come back.
So we shall open the second hearing of the public. Does anybody wish to be heard? Anybody wish to be heard?
I do have one question. Sorry. They said that they will not have a liquor license, but then somebody said they can bring liquor, the people can bring the liquor in and consume it on site? Is that right?
That's for the city. They'll manage that aspect of it. But there were a lot of things talked about tonight.
I know. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to be heard? Anyone else wish to be heard? Third call. Anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, we'll close the second hearing of the public. And may I get a motion to table training?
I will make a motion to table training, both items A and B, until the August meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have support?
Support.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Lubeck?
Yes.
Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde? Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman DeHunt?
Yes. Moving on to commissioners' comments, we will start with Ms. Brazaszewski. Thoughts, comments?
Nope, just thank you, Planning Commission. Did you want to table the monthly report or the quarterly report as well?
It's not on my,
It was part of my report. Do you want me to say it or table it?
we'll table it till August.
Okay, well, thank you. Have a great day.
Fire Chief,
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Assistant Manager Holman.
Oh, kind of unrelated to planning, but just an announcement that the city has a provisional police chief who has started. And of course, we have a new deputy chief in Matthew Hambright. So police department is moving ahead. Otherwise, I think everything is going well. The city did receive a grant that is up for council approval for planning assistance from SEMCOG for the Kelly Road corridor. So that's exciting to work with Harbor Woods on that project. Thank you.
Mr. Albright?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. See everyone in August.
All right. Councilman DeMonico.
Just one quick thing. Thank you, everybody, since there's a lot of residents in the audience too. Just make sure
you vote August 8th, there will be a primary for mayor and a school bond proposal for East Point Community Schools. So make sure you do that and get an absentee ballot as of today, and if not, make sure you vote on election day. Thank you.
Ms. Ulinski?
I kind of do have something to say. Thank you, everyone, for working so hard on this. I like that we leave no stone unturned, and hopefully we don't. But someone in the audience had earlier stated about looking at the positive and quit looking at the negative. And not to this point that we had tonight for this particular item, but in general, I feel like we as people and residents need to do better towards each other and for each other. Every time I see a negative comment on those ridiculous Facebook pages, I just want to scream, because don't complain about it. Come with a solution. Come with an idea. I think it would go farther. I think we'd be more harmonious. You know, say hi to the guy walking down the street. Can I help you carry your groceries in? We do that on my block a lot, and honestly, I just love my block of how well we look out. And I just want to see more of that spread through the city, and people to stop being negative and coming back with, you know, cutting comments. You can be constructive, but I just think we need to do better and come up with solutions for every cutting comment you make. It's just annoying. And thank you for my soapbox.
Anytime. Mr. Broll?
Nothing for me tonight.
Mr. Lalonde?
Nothing.
Ms. Naylor?
Nothing.
Ms. Moody?
Well, I would like to say that I completed the city planner program, the MSU extension.
It's fun.
So that was quite fun. Tonight, I'm listening, and everything is finally coming together. Everything is finally coming together, so I'm excited about that. But other than that, there's nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lubeck?
Ms. Ulinski, thank you for your comments. I wholeheartedly agree. It's easy to complain. It's much more difficult to come with solutions. Instead of sitting behind your keyboard bashing everything with, in many cases, very little knowledge, get out to these public hearings, or better yet, get into that office right now there that's a city manager, put in an application, and sit on a board and a commission and actually get involved in making a difference. Also, the comments tonight that were thrown out here, well, we need to give everybody a second chance. It's better than an empty building. I don't agree with that. I think the wrong business is far worse for the city than a vacant building. And also a second chance, I'm reading here that in 2022, the police performed 60 visits to the previous business. 59 second chances, people, and nothing got corrected. That's a tough one for me to have to swallow. 60 visits and nothing was done to make a correction. With that, I'll slide the soapbox over to Mr. DeHaan.
It's a pretty high soapbox to get on now. Two observations. First off, I want to pay respects to two individuals that have passed on that were important to this city, whether you agreed with them or not. Mr. Harvey Creech, who had passed away, I believe when our last meeting, he was still ailing, but he has passed on. And to Mr. Brown, the gentleman that used to go around and take pictures of the police officers and who was very active in the court and who did everything for the people in the court and was just a genuine nice man. You know, it's a horrible loss when you lose people that care. And I guess, you know, that kind of dovetails into my comments for the night. We need more Harvey Creeches that are going to, pardon my language, piss off people because they ask the questions. We need more people like Mr. Brown who actually care and go around. We're going to anger some of you in the public, in the immortal words of Gloria Swanson, the little people out there. we're going to anger some of you because we're going to do things that you don't like. And we're going to make some of you happy because we do things that you like. But sometimes you just got to eat a bad sandwich because the law says you have to. We try and hold people to a high standard. We don't get it right all the time, but we do our best. We ask a lot of questions. We don't always agree with each other, but we have to ask the questions. And I love the fact that everybody came out and commented. I wish this auditorium was filled for every meeting, for every commission, for every city council meeting, and for every school board meeting, because caring makes the world go round, makes it a whole lot better. With that said, I am getting off of my soapbox for the evening. I want to wish you all well, stay cool in this hot weather, and have a wonderful night. May I get a motion to close the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
You have a support, a third and a fourth probably. Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Ms. Naylor? Mr. Brawl?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde? Mr. Luback?
Yes.
Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Chairman DeHaan?
Yes.